Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why I'm worried about today's Supreme Court decision about sports gambling.
And I'm Cowherd, and I'll tell you how Lamar Jackson is starting to look a little like Tim Tebow, and the season hasn't started. Speak for yourself on a Monday starts right now.
I mean, his arm's shaky, but it ain't that bad. Come on. All right, hello and welcome. Don't adjust your TV. I do look this good. We're joined today by Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard and NBA champ Dante Jones. Let's start in Boston, where the Celtics blew out LeBron and the Cavaliers in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals yesterday. Cleveland put up just 83 points, including only 15 from LeBron. Even still, he says he's not worried about the series moving forward.
I have zero level of concern at this stage. I didn't go to college, so it's not March Madness. You get better throughout the series. You see ways you can get better throughout the series, but I've been down 0-1, I've been down 0-2. I've been down before in the postseason. But for me, there's never no level of concern, no matter how bad I played tonight with 7 turnovers, how inefficient I was shooting the ball. Just as confident going into a series, no matter if it's a 0-0 series or I'm down 0-1.
All right, LeBron may be onto something. His worst games this postseason have all been Game 1s, and he's been incredible in all the other games. Cowherd, should he be worried, though?
No, I mean, if the Cavs lost by 4, we wouldn't even have this discussion. But they got blown out, so you should be worried. Well, blowouts are the way the NBA works now with analytics. 37 of the 65 playoff games so far, and with the Warriors, we still have some blowouts happening, have been blowouts. So analytics are good and bad. They took away the huddle in football, game's faster, I love it. More skilled shooters in the NBA, I love it. The downside is some of these games are over about 12 minutes in. I guarantee you Houston, Golden State, both teams are going to win or lose a game with a blowout. If it was a 5-point loss, what would we care?
Well, I'm concerned. I'm never going to jump off LeBron's bandwagon. I still think they'll win the series. I am concerned, though. I thought Jeff Van Gundy said something yesterday that kind of just opened my mind to the possibility that Boston could win this series. Because take LeBron away, Boston has a better roster. Even with their injuries of Hayward and Kyrie Irving, possibly the second, third, and fourth best players are wearing Boston Celtic uniforms, and we certainly know who the best coach is in this series. So I'm concerned. I don't have LeBron. I'm not made of vibranium like LeBron, so I get why he's not worried. But me, I'm concerned and I'm worried.
I'm a little insulted by that comment by Jeff Van Gundy saying the second, third, and fourth best players are in the Celtics jersey, because we have to pay attention to the man that Kevin Love is, the NBA champion, and the consistency level that he's done throughout the duration of his career. So we cannot take a season and put them ahead of Kevin Love because he is better than them. He's just in a different role on his team. However, Game 1 is generally a game of reads for LeBron James. He's seen every major coverage there is. He takes that game to try and compute what the defenses are throwing at him, how he's going to be able to take advantage of different defenses. And he kind of feels his way through that game. Sometimes you get great games, sometimes you get lackluster games. So I think his comment was necessary, and his comment is truly indicative of how he feels, because he's trying to look at how the series is going to be rather than trying to just dominate and take over Game 1 and just give everything that he has. I think this series is going to be a series of adjustments, and I don't think Brad Stevens and their defense has many adjustments. They've shown their cards. They've shown how they're going to be able to play LeBron James. Now it's for him to figure out how to beat their defense and beat them in any way he can.
I think that's a great point about LeBron reading Game 1. That's why his numbers haven't been what they have. Looks like he's trying to get his teammates involved in all 3 of these Game 1s, and they haven't been able to do it, so they've been in trouble. What I will say is this. I think I've gone from zero concern that Boston could win the series when it started to 10% concern because this is a different animal. Like we saw, so far it looks like Indiana, and we know that went 7. But this ain't Indiana, with all due respect.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, they have much better weapons. They don't just have Victor Oladipo. They got several guys that can hit the 3 and take you off the dribble. They obviously have a great coach who can get it done, and they have home court advantage. So if they went 7, I would pick LeBron because we've seen him with his back against the wall get it done. But I wouldn't want to go 7 with this Boston team just because they are gritty and smart, and I wouldn't want to be in that situation.
Dante points something out. You've played with LeBron. he kind of surveys the field. Tom Brady's never had a great first quarter in 8 Super Bowls. None. I'm not even sure, did they score it? He'd gone 7 Super Bowls with no points in the first quarter. Tom Brady's had great fourth quarters. You know, Muhammad Ali's not known for his first rounds. He's known for his 10th. I think these all-time greats, and LeBron's one, I think they kind of watch and say, what works, what doesn't. Then all of a sudden in the NBA, you're like, oh, God, we're down 24. And then it's over, and you're like, I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to show my cards on stuff.
My issue is vintage LeBron last night, they still lose, in my opinion. And that's what I'm worried about. Yeah, we know we're going to get a LeBron James-type performance moving forward. But I'm going to go back at you, the Kevin Love deal. Who would you rather have at both ends of the court, Al Horford or Kevin Love?
Kevin Love.
Jason Tatum at this point.
Kevin Love.
Honestly.
I mean,
Kevin,
At both ends of the
I'm
court.
with you.
I don't. What does Al Horford have, and what has he done more than Kevin Love at this point in time? Like,
I'm talking about in this series.
In this series
Let's
right now?
Throw history out the window. Who's going to be a better performer at both ends of the court in this series?
I would rather have Kevin Love. I'd rather take championship DNA over what Al brings to the table.
You'd rather take the past than what we're going to see in this series.
Because everybody is judged upon their past when you're taking things into consideration.
Kevin can hit threes.
I think
He spaces
Kevin
the floor
Love
better.
generally is the second best player in this series. He's had a better career than any of those guys on the Celtics. But these playoffs, he has been so inconsistent. That's my concern. I thought as the definitive second option now that he was going to be, virtually every night, you can scribble in 20 and 10 and know you're getting it. You haven't been able to do that with him.
Al Horford has definitely been their anchor. No disrespect to Al Horford. I'm not saying that he's a bad NBA player, anything of that nature. I would just rather have Kevin Love. I think they had one bad shooting performance. We've seen that it was their worst shooting performance of the season. I think shots that they didn't knock down, they're going to knock down. It's going to be a different game. It's coming down to that what is it? 4 for 26 from 3, 15% from 3. You're not going to win basketball games.
This time of year brings us 2 things: graduations and Father's Day, and the gifts that go along with them. Before you buy Dad another tie or that grad a balloon that will probably float away, ask yourself this: does my dad or grad like wings or sports, or better yet, both? If the answer is yes, then get them a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. Right now, if you purchase $30 worth or more in-store or online, they'll give you a $5 bonus to keep for yourself. That's a gift that gives back. How generous of you. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Terms and conditions apply.
The Western Conference, the finals are here. Rockets host the Warriors, game 1 tonight. Houston has admitted they're obsessed with beating Golden State. The combination of James Harden and Chris Paul, which some people doubted at the start of the year, has come up big in the playoffs, where both these guys have started to shake their reputations for shrinking in the postseason. Whitlock, both these guys play a lot of iso ball. Will it work against the Warriors?
I'm someone that thinks Houston has a chance, a real solid chance, of taking this series 7 games and winning it. I think the only way they get there, though, is if they do adjust a little bit their style of play. If Chris Paul and James Harden just pat the ball at the top of the key and everybody just runs off in their little 4 corners or whatever, I just don't think that's going to work over the long haul against Golden State. You can't come out with a completely different style of play, but they need to adjust. They're going to have to pass the ball. It's like the least passing team in the NBA is not going to beat the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, Oklahoma City got bounced. They had 10 assists one game. So I don't think just the ISO works, but let people say, will it work against Golden State? Yes, but that doesn't mean it'll win. We're talking about the threes. Let me give you 2 other numbers, 4 and 2. The Warriors have 4 stars. Rockets have 2. Golden State should win the series because they have better players. We're looking at a team that we mention now among Magic and Kareem's Lakers.
You do.
And Michael and Pippen's
You do.
Bulls. Well, I do. I think if you consider the legislation of the game, the three-point shot, this is the fastest scoring, most athletic, longest, best ball handling team in my life.
NBA we've ever seen.
Well, perhaps, but that's the league we have.
Golden State has 4 stars because they've won on a consistent basis. That's why they have 4 stars. They don't have 4 franchise-carrying players, no. But they have 4 people that work well together to create a championship-level team. So Houston has the ability to play in a myriad of different areas where they can play the ISO game, they can pass the ball, they can knock down threes. I think versus Golden State, their defense tends to put you in ISO situations because they switch most pick and rolls and they switch most things. You have to be able to ISO to be able to beat them. That's how we beat them to win our championship, because we had two guys that can go ISO when they put you in those situations. If you don't have any ISO players, you can't beat them. That's what it comes down to. So I think Houston has a chance in 7 games to beat Golden State, and they are real. It's going to be a tough matchup.
You like their
for them.
style of play against Golden State?
I like their style of play. I think they're made to play Golden State to beat them in the 7-game series. I think that's the way they put their roster together. I think they have enough defenders to be able to wear KD down and not be put in a situation where KD's just playing ISO basketball by himself on an island, one dribble pull up everywhere. They have defenders that can go and make it tough for KD.
We're talking about Chris and James. They have to be at their best together for 5 or 6 games of this series. We haven't seen that much in the playoffs yet. You know, James has been great. Chris has been bad or so-so. Chris has been great. James has been bad or so-so. They're going to need to combine greatness. But this goes beyond them. Eric Gordon has not been Eric Gordon. 18 points in the regular season, 13 in the postseason. Trevor Ariza from 12 points in the regular season or 11 to 8, you know, and not shooting well, either one of them. Those guys are going to have to step up if they're going to have a chance to beat Golden State.
I think this series goes down to the team that's the hungriest. And I pay attention to Houston because their legacies are on line right now, James and CP. They're playing for something more than just a normal playoff series. They're playing for how you define their career when they're done. And I think this is their opportunity. I like their relationship with each other because I think they get along, even though there's adversity that comes during the course of a season and guys tend to bicker and fray a little bit. They're competitive and they're playing for how you view them when it's all said and done. And I think they won a championship.
We're giving Boston a chance to beat LeBron because Brad Stevens. I mean, if you put Nate McMillan there, if you put Terry Stott in, we would like LeBron to win this series. A big part of that component is Brad Stevens will steal games. Listen, when I say Mike D'Antoni, what's the first thing you think about?
Choke in the playoffs.
Okay, so I get the better team and the better coach and the 4 stars and championship experience. I don't think it's that competitive a series.
Is he going to make any adjustments? I mean, you know, any major adjustments throughout this series?
We said that with Utah, and we said that Mike D'Antoni doesn't have any adjustments, and they went to Utah and won 2 games. Like, they showed you that they can turn it up defensively and make defensive adjustments with the staff that he's put together now. I don't think he has the same staff in Phoenix. I think his staff has gotten better, and he's able to do different things than he did before.
I like Dante's point about Chris Paul and James Harden's legacies being on the line. Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson have established their legacy. Kevin Durant, to some degree, has established. And so Dante's point, which I tend to agree with, Paul and Harden are just going to be more desperate and more hungry. So I think that's going to be their advantage. They're going to be willing to do things. They'll come out of character, and I do think we're going to see more of them both playing at a high level because just the stakes are so high, and I think they're competitive.
I think you made a great point about why Golden State has 4 stars. But Draymond and Klay, to a lesser extent, are stars because, as you said, they're winning. Like, if Houston wins, Capella's going to be viewed as a star. Like, he gives you that. And if Eric Gordon plays well, he could be, you know, like, so it really is 2 franchise players, Steph and KD, against 2 franchise players in Houston. So that evens it out a little bit. That's a good
They
point.
mirror the Golden State Warriors of last year for us. When we played them in the championship last year, you saw it in their eyes. They had what we call get back. Like, we punched them in the face the year before, and they were waiting a whole year to get us back and to win something that they thought that we took back from them. You see that in Houston this year. You see CP and James wanting something more than just a normal winning of a playoff series. They're hungry. They have this thirst that you only comes around for one particular team in a season. And I don't see the same thing I saw in Golden State last year. KD had the adversity of him changing teams and him being the bad guy last year, and he wanted to get that off his back, get that off his chest, and to use the championship to do that. I think I see that in Houston this year.
That said, you've got the Warriors in 6.
Welcome back. Joined now by the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Washington, D.C., where the Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling this morning, striking down a 26-year-old federal law that prohibited states from legalized sports gambling. Today's decision now opens the door for states to legislate sports betting as they see fit, and many have already begun the process of trying to legalize it. The NFL released a statement, though, on the ruling saying, quote, "The NFL's long-standing and unwavering commitment to protect the integrity of our game remains absolute. Congress has long recognized the potential harms posed by sports betting to the integrity of sporting contests and the public confidence in these events. Given that history, we intend to call on Congress again, this time to enact a core regulatory framework for legalized sports betting." Whitlock, is legalized sports gambling good for sports?
I'm not 100% sure. Listen, obviously I'm a sports gambler. I don't know if it enhances the experience. It certainly makes you watch the game closer and more passionately, but there's a thin line between love and hate. And I've seen sports gambling activate my hate and activate the conspiracy theorist in me and makes me question the integrity of the game. When I don't have money on the game, I'm far more rational. And so I just think the pervasiveness of gambling throughout America, and particularly when you look at the lower end sports, I think it could lead to more corruption. We see that in soccer over in Europe. I'm not as thrilled about this as everyone else.
Listen, I'm not a big pot smoker, so when pot gets legalized in California, I don't rush to smoke it. If you don't bet sports, you're not rushing to a casino or a book to bet it. It will take people who already bet sports and make it easier and regulate it and take out, the markets that concern people. This is why they legalized marijuana. It made money for states, which I used to live in one, Connecticut, that's about bankrupt. So they're going to be one of the first to legalize it. I think stuff like this, there's a basic taboo. It was weed, same-sex marriage, legalized sports gambling. And then every year you'll see the voting on it, and we get more comfortable, and we get more comfortable, we get more comfortable. And then we wake up one morning and we're like, yeah, they're doing it in Europe. I'll tell you, for our business, it's great for TV. If I can get somebody to watch another segment of my show because they think they get information, that's great for television.
Yeah, besides media, we're talking about websites such as mine now. There's no stigma to, we can't put gambling ads on there. It looks bad. So we'll be having more money coming in, another revenue source for websites. I think you'll start to see TV shows featuring gambling left and right. But think about it for the leagues from this perspective, Whitlock. If they're bringing in that integrity fee, whether it's 1% or 0.5%, the salary cap's going to go up. That means more money for the players. Everybody wins. I mean, I don't think that whiff of impropriety will be out there for the NBA. Because remember, NBA and NFL, MLB and NBA, their leagues have been pushing this with the states. They've been going around the country. And even in the NFL, these guys make a lot of money. I don't see them being influenced. Now, the referees, as you alluded to, that could be an area.
College athletes,
yeah,
who'll be sitting there watching even more people make money off of their game, and they're not making any. How much easier will it be, perhaps, to entice one of those guys to throw a game, particularly with all that futures betting or the one-play betting, who scores first, who does this or who does that? I just think you're courting a lot more corruption.
Well, by the way, $4 zillion was bet last year in the Super Bowl. People are betting. Now they'll just do it legally. They were doing it out of a warehouse in Hoboken. Now they're doing it across the street at a parlor eventually where you and I live. One thing to remember, whenever people are like, whoa, gambling, I do a thing called Blazing 5. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it for a decade on Fridays.
Yeah.
I hit about 58%.
No,
you know what percent?
No, on a good year, right? I mean,
here's what I hit in Powerball, 0%. What's corrupt? States paying for funding for schools with almost no chance for me to win, or I can bet $50 tonight on a game, win it, and take my wife out for pizza. What's corrupt? The lotteries, to me, we're paying for our kids' education based on the chance, even if I won the Powerball. The state takes half. I get my money back and then some if I win a sports game.
How cool is this if you're at the Warriors-Rockets game tonight and this legalized gambling happens? In a year, you'll be able to sit there in the stadium and be like, oh, it's the fourth quarter. Who's going to score more points, Steph Curry or James Harden? And you could just put 100 on that and let it ride and have fun with it. You don't
And
think
be mad at Steph Curry when he doesn't win
Well,
you
you got
your
to be a
bet
smart gambler.
and yelling
Whitlock.
and screaming
Okay.
at him in that arena.
Oh, by the way, sports is ruled by passion. Yeah. What is older than the NFL? European soccer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I know. No, but I mean, when you watch European soccer, it's almost, the brand of it is crazy fans, fires in stadiums. That is for.
That's what we need, fires in stadiums.
By the way,
and riots in stadiums.
Look at it this way. Do you like steak?
Of course.
If you win more of your bets, you get more free steak.
There you go. Win-win, baby.
All right, welcome back to the show. Jason McIntyre is back. We're joined now by Super Bowl champ Mark Schlereth. Let's move to Baltimore, where there could be some trouble brewing with rookie quarterback Lamar Jackson admitting this weekend that he hadn't spoken to Joe Flacco at all since being drafted last month, with another report claiming Flacco hasn't returned any of Jackson's calls or texts. Cowherd, do you have an issue with Flacco ignoring Lamar?
Yeah, I think it's petty and unprofessional, but I think he has reason for concern because I think Lamar is going to be Tebow, and I think Flacco can see it coming. And both Tebow and Lamar are 3-year starters and Heisman winners who bring a brand to the league, will lead the league in sales. Quarterbacks, Kyle Orton, Flacco, local fans are about done with their act. Both have unique styles that may or may not work in the NFL, but had profoundly gifted college coaches, which elevated them to where they got a little overdrafted. I don't think Lamar's a first-round pick. I never thought Tebow was a draftable quarterback. And what happened with Tebow is happening with Lamar. We've already got a mini controversy. We're not even to camps yet. Tebow started catching fire before preseason. And his followers, his faith-based followers started, any story was big. And I think both Tebow and Flacco are underdog stories. And that plays huge to the American sports media. I think Flacco knows it. I think he senses it. But I do think he was petty.
Look, if any business hires the guy to replace you, I don't blame you for not speaking to that guy. I just don't have much of a problem with this. Lamar Jackson was drafted to replace Flacco. What's Flacco supposed to do? Throw a ticker tape parade? and what? Hey, Lamar, great to have you here. You're here to take my job. I think this is the Baltimore Ravens, Ozzie Newsome. I'll applaud him. What's always been missing with Flacco is an edge, a passion.
Yeah.
And they've lit a fire under him, and this is part of the fire. I ain't messing with Lamar Jackson.
You're not obligated in any way, shape, or form to mentor a guy. But this, to me, is a bigger issue of where Joe Flacco is from a confidence standpoint. I was drafted late. I was a 10th round draft choice. The year after I got drafted and became a starter, my rookie year, they drafted the Outland Trophy winner at my position. And I have to be, I was nervous about it until I realized that guy can't play, right? And so for me, you get to the point where if you're Joe Flacco, I think there's two things here. One, shows me where your confidence level is in your own game. That you are so petty, that you are so threatened by this kid that you can't reach out and say, man, good to have you on the team. Look forward to competing with you. Two, the best thing that you can do for your own game is to talk about football, to mentor a guy, to teach a kid. Because you know what it ends up doing? You start to see the forest through the trees. You start to get the 30,000-foot perspective on what it is you're doing. It makes you a better player. One of the greatest pieces of advice, and I've gotten many of them, was from him about radio. I was doing radio at our former place of employment.
Yeah.
He mentored me. Was he afraid that I'd take his job? No. You know why? Because he's great at what he does. He's very confident in what he does. He gave me some of the best advice I've ever gotten, and I've had the #1 show in Denver for 2.5 years.
You should
by a long way.
If you listen to me like Schlereth.
But the point being is that if you're secure in what you're doing for a living, I don't care who comes in. I'm better than you. It's all right. I'll share with you everything you need to know because you're still not going to take my job.
I'm listening to everything, just so you know. But listen, you don't want Whitlock him to throw a ticker tape parade? How about return a text message? I mean, that takes like 30 seconds. Listen, that just shows to me Joe Flacco's scared. And if I'm a Baltimore Ravens player right now, I'm like, geez, is our quarterback that soft and that scared that he doesn't want to return a text message from a rookie who, as you said, is multiple years away? I mean, Flacco's got to go home and look himself in the mirror and say, geez, what do I want from the rest of my career in Baltimore? Because if this is how it ends, with not returning text messages and losing your starting job, he's not going to be Joe Flacco's Super Bowl winner. He's going to be Joe Flacco, guy who took a huge contract and then failed and was scared to return text
You know, it's interesting. Last year, it was frustrating to you that Colin Kaepernick, who wasn't playing, was often the story in the league. Lamar Jackson, who won't play, will be the story of the league this year. I think there's something like Tebow that's magical about him. And I think when you move to these teams as a first-round quarterback and the starter struggles, that third deck, then the second deck, then the lower deck, then the sideline starts chanting your name.
I was at practice every day, Tebow's rookie year, during training camp. And Kyle Orton would come out and, I mean, just spin it. Tebow was dirting one ball after the next ball after the next ball. They'd walk out of the locker room for practice. Kyle Orton would get booed. Oh. Like literally get booed by 5,000 fans out there, and Tebow would get cheered. Tebow couldn't complete a 5-yard out. And it was like, I mean...
Sometimes
so y'all listen to that story and think Joe Flacco's in the wrong here.
No.
If he knows that's what's coming.
Yeah, but there's nothing... Again, if you have confidence, he's a Super Bowl MVP, you should have more confidence. To the Browns, who might have a quarterback controversy of their own. Coach Hugh Jackson just reiterated that Tyrod Taylor's the Browns starting quarterback, which means first overall pick Baker Mayfield going to have to wait his turn. Whitlock, is Hugh Jackson, you know him, making a mistake naming Tyrod the starter over Baker?
Making a mistake naming Tyrod the starter. Naming. That's a completely different deal than Tyrod Taylor being the starter for the entire season. That would be a mistake. Let's get to training camp and see what happens with Baker Mayfield. I don't understand. No, what I will say, I don't understand why Hugh Jackson seems to be unopen to a quarterback competition right now. Tyrod Taylor has not earned the starting job in Cleveland.
He hasn't?
No, he's just been there a couple of weeks, a couple of months. What has he done?
We got Buffalo to the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
The #1 overall pick in the draft.
Well.
No, that's where they took him. That's what he is. You are what your draft pick says you are. Why wouldn't he have a chance to be the starting quarterback? This is silly to me.
Maybe Hugh Jackson understands we overdrafted him. I wasn't into Baker.
Then they need to fire Hugh Jackson.
Well, okay, so then your offensive-minded smart coach, let's get rid of him? I think Baker needs him.
Hugh Jackson's 1-31 with the Browns. Dorsey, the GM, did not hire Hugh Jackson. Hugh knows my only chance of keeping this job is if I start Tyrod Taylor and win some games.
Yeah.
You can't start a rookie 6-foot quarterback out of the gate. You go 1-5, you're toast. He won't make it to Thanksgiving at this rate. Hugh Jackson has to start Tyrod.
To me, his best chance would be getting great production out of Baker Mayfield and being Baker Mayfield's guy.
You think Baker's better than Tyrod Taylor?
I think that Baker will get his opportunity when they start the season 1-5 or 0-6. He'll get his opportunity. I think continuity is really important. Offense is all based on rhythm, the rhythm of the offense, even all the way down to cadence. I've actually seen a guy that I got drafted with get fired because his cadence was so bad. He was a 4th-round pick, I believe. Fired. Your cadence is so bad, we can't use you. So the rhythm of the offense starts with the cadence. But think about this. When you've played primarily in a spread system, I think Baker Mayfield took 6 snaps from under center. Okay, you get to the NFL, 60% of everything you do in the NFL is probably out of shotgun. That means 40% is under center. All your play action, all your good play action off your run game is under center. Now, You've got reverse pivot. You got open. You've got open to the play side. You got the reverse pivot out, and every route and route combination off of play action is based on your footwork. Now, I've talked to a bunch of quarterbacks that played in a spread system that say, I can't even focus on the coverage and the route combination because I'm busy counting steps. So the throw is based, if you're running drag slant or you're running all lion or you're running a route combination, the throw is based on the depth of your drop and the timing of your drop. And if you're sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 4, like all of a sudden I'm late with the ball coming out. And so it's a much tougher transition for a spread quarterback that all of a sudden gets put into a shotgun situation, which you're going to be in, or excuse me, in an under center situation, which is going to be 40% of the time. There's a transition. So Hugh Jackson's basically saying, hey, listen, this kid's going to play. He'll play for us. He'll play for the Browns, even if I'm not here. But he's not quite ready yet because he's never played from under center.
By the way, Tyrod Taylor, I've said this before, not every business is Facebook or Amazon. Not every quarterback who's a franchise quarterback is Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Tyrod Taylor's a good quarterback. He's a C-plus quarterback. I wouldn't build around him for a decade. But if I'm a football coach, and you gave me Tyrod Taylor, who's played in Buffalo, which is Cleveland, just closer to Toronto. If you gave me Tyrod Taylor and Baker today, well, Tyrod Taylor's a better player. And by the way, I know he's a better player pre-Thanksgiving, for sure.
Let me change it. If it was Sam Darnold, what would you be saying?
Sam Darnold's a better player than Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield went number one, Colin. Some people thought he was the best player in the draft. The Cleveland Browns.
Well, again.
And other people. Didn't Joel Klatt have him at the top of his? There's other people that know the quarterback position that have this guy rated as the top quarterback and the best player in this draft. And you're talking about you can't play him because Tyrod Taylor?
Studying him and watching him. Now, understand that 71% completion rate. It's like saying, hey, Josh Allen is really bad because he's 58% completion. Somewhere in the middle lies the truth, right? When you're throwing 5 or 6 bubble screens, a couple swing passes, a couple underneath things, you walk into a game 15 for 15. I was impressed with how well he threw the ball down the field from the pocket. Baker Mayfield. Okay. He is a pocket thrower.
No, he does.
With that said, you play in a conference where nobody's ever covered for the most part. So, there's a lot of this that goes on that you have to weigh and you have to look at. I think the guy is, my initial thought on him, and then after studying him, he's a much better player than I thought he was. But the bottom line is this. There's still a huge learning curve coming from that system that he's going to have to pick up on. And so I think they're doing a smart thing here. Tyrod, you're going to start until we stink. And then, Baker, you're going to come in and be our savior.
We want him to get out of September then.
Welcome back. Chris Broussard, Dante Jones are back. Let's return to Boston. Celtics dominate the Cavs in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. LeBron having his worst game in the playoffs so far. Most of the credit for this Celtic playoff run has gone to Brad Stevens, the coach, and even after that win, the coach still wants to see more from his team.
We've got a lot of room to improve from tonight. We got stagnant in their third quarter run, and I think we're very alert to the fact that we'll get a heavyweight punch on Tuesday night.
All right, Whitlock, who's better at his gig, Stevens or LeBron?
Listen, you left out the word right now. I want to get out ahead of Dante Jones, who's going to list all of LeBron's accomplishments from the past, and that's not what we're talking about.
You're talking about this
based
game
on that
one game?
No, we talk this playoff series, this season.
Okay.
What's going on right now this season? Who's better at that? And look, it doesn't have to be a slight to either one. Right now, who is better at their job? I can put together a nice argument for Brad Stevens based off of what we're seeing right now. The man is at the peak of his powers. Who loses Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving and still makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals, comes out in Game 1 with a masterful game plan, brings Morris in as a starter, shuts down LeBron. It's a right now question. I don't want to hear about last year, Dante.
He shut down LeBron for one game. LeBron didn't play well. They didn't knock shots down. He never had Gordon Hayward, so he didn't lose Gordon. Gordon didn't get a full game in, so he was never part of the play. Kyrie has played half the season. They're the same team with Kyrie as without. They still win games and they still play as hard. They still play defense. He's doing a great job. He's the best coach in the league this year, in my opinion. However, he's still not better than the best player.
By the way,
best player in the game. He still has two top 3 picks. He has an NBA All-Star.
He lost.
He has a
3
great roster. Like from 1 to 12, they have a great team. So he's doing his job, and he's doing it at a high level. But is he the LeBron James of coaching? No.
He lost 3 games at Milwaukee a week ago.
Thank you.
Or
Good
2
job.
weeks ago.
Did he win or lose a series?
Oh, well, congratulations.
They're playing a series.
He eked. By the way, they went to the
Bonds,
fourth
you did
quarter
go
in
on
Game
one game,
7. It
so-
was that close.
How many games did LeBron lose against the Pacers? Are we going to count them?
Pacers are a good basketball
Oh,
team, man.
yeah,
they just
they
haven't.
are.
They're a very
And the
good
Greek
basketball
Freak
team.
and Milwaukee and
like
Jabari
the-
Parker.
they were
going
gonna
to
be a struggle for anybody.
They're all garbage.
Brad Stevens
Pacers are better than them.
is 1-4 on the road in the playoffs.
Woo!
They're 1-4 in a row. And to Dante's point, they have 3 number 3 picks in this starting lineup. Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum were
should've been
number 3 picks.
Jason Tatum should have been a
Jason
number 1
Tatum
pick.
could have been the number 1 pick. Terry Rozier was the 16th pick. Marcus Morris, who started, was a lottery pick, 14th. So you got 5 lottery picks in your starting lineup. I'm just saying he's not working with a bunch of chumps. And Gordon Hayward, when Drake,
not the Spurs
what sparked Golden State to be so great? When David Lee was hurt, and so Steve Kerr had to start Draymond Green, and the rest is history. This could end up being the same thing. Gordon Hayward was hurt, so Jason Tatum gets this role, and Jason Tatum is probably already better than Gordon Hayward, but certainly going to be better going forward. So, and then you got LeBron. Come on.
Come on, man.
I mean, what?
He's not. But what we're saying is he's not doing it by himself. Okay, he has a roster, a full roster. He's the best roster right now.
LeBron against Indiana, there were multiple games. He was on an island. He was doing everything to himself. Brad Stevens has a smart veteran, Al Horford. He's got guys who can shoot, Jason Tatum. Great defender, Jaylen Brown. Guy off the bench.
You just said after LeBron, the 3 best players in the series are on the Celtics.
But
You just said that.
You know what I'm going to say also? Let me add to that statement. Brad Stevens has a lot to do with that. He's developed these young guys into the great players that they
That's fair.
showed early on.
He's a great coach. He's probably the best. He's done the best coaching job this year.
You know what
He's
you
just not
always
better
say
than
on this
LeBron.
show?
What?
This is Jason. Listen, I love LeBron, but let me spend another 9 minutes picking somebody else. That's what this show should be called. Speak for yourself about LeBron, how I don't love him, but I say I do.
I'm not knocking him.
Okay.
What we're seeing here is a great coaching performance from Brad Stevens that is the equal of LeBron's play. And all I'm saying is right now, what he's doing coaching-wise is equal what LeBron's doing as a player.
Philadelphia.
People were saying throughout these playoffs that LeBron is playing at a level we have not seen since Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
So he's playing at a level that only a handful of players have ever played at. That's what they were saying.
Is that what
Brad Stevens isn't doing that? He's doing great. Tom Thibodeau did this with a undermanned Chicago team. Quinn Snyder did it in Utah all year. You know, I thought he was coach of the year. Like a lot of
Chris
players
brought
are
up
coaches
something
like
very interesting last week. What happens when Kyrie and his ego come back into this mix? This is a young team that listens to Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
And trust.
Oh, they love Brad. What happens when Kyrie's like, I don't want.
We'll get there. We're getting there right now.
So to the East, where the Cavs are looking to bounce back tonight against Boston after that really ugly, embarrassing Game 1 loss Sunday. LeBron struggled in that game, but one of his teammates, Tristan Thompson, is expecting a, quote, legendary performance from Bron tonight. Whitlock, we use this saying must win, but is it a must win for the Cavs?
I never count LeBron James out, but I do feel like they have to win this game. This isn't the Indiana Pacers. Again, I'm a Pacer fan. I know they have a problem with LeBron James. We all know that Toronto Raptors have a problem with LeBron James. I'm not sure if Boston has that problem in terms of LeBron may get 40, 50 tonight, but it's going to take more than just LeBron to destroy these Boston Celtics. And at some point, in order for the Cavaliers to win this series, they got to win a game on the road. And if you take the first 2 off the table, then I start losing faith that they'll get one later in this series.
I totally disagree. First of all, LeBron and this group have won on the road. Boston is the young Sixers gagging away from being 0-5 on the road. They couldn't beat Milwaukee on the road. Basically, Philly had them beat. we both said this, Jason. That was the closest 4-1 series we've ever seen. Philadelphia gave games away. Boston's young teams on the road. I mean, I always say this with my kids, the younger the kid, the more problems I get on the roller coaster in the back seat of the car.
Kids get older, Colin. No, seriously. I think Boston's going to grow up in this series, and I get you. They've been terrible on the road. But eventually,
Well, I don't think it's a must win. It's close, but I think it's a must play well or must close loss. Like, at the very least, they need to play well and lose
Talking about
close.
Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Right.
If they get blown away, then, now look, they've got veterans that came back from 3-1 in the finals. We know that. So they might not lose heart, but the Jordan Clarksons, the Rodney Hoods, guys that you're going to need in this series, they might lose heart if they get blown out. But if they play it close, to all your points, they're going to win the next 2 games in Cleveland. They only have to win 1. They got chances in Game 5 and Game 7 in Boston. So I don't think it's quite a must.
Colin, I think you were reading my notes because I was going to say the same thing about the road. Because to me, Boston is so critical that they go in 2-0. They can't go on the road 1-1.
They can't.
They can't do it just because they haven't performed. They've been close. Now, in the Philly game, Philly kind of tricked that one off themselves.
No question.
I think the mental mindset of them taking care of home court and saying we're up 2-0 on this team. They've been playing with house money all throughout the playoffs, but now they're saying we're going to legitimize this by beating the King twice at home. That gives us a little leeway for us going on the road. If you go on the road, you're 1-1, you lose those 2 games.
Yeah.
Come on,
Which
that's a
they
whole.
probably would.
And now the mental pressure to come back home and try to win. The pressure now shifts to the young guys who haven't been there. LeBron, I got more confidence in LeBron being down 0-2 than I do in Boston being 1-1.
I was going to
wish
say,
we
so
had
it's
asked
more
a
of a
different
must
question.
win.
That's what I was going to
for
say.
Boston.
Do y'all feel like there's more pressure on the Celtics than on the Cavaliers tonight?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. Listen, 10 days ago, Boston was in a Game 7 at home with Milwaukee. We were entering the 4th quarter, and it was a coin flip. Let's not pretend these are the Larry Bird Celtics. I'll tell you what I think is most important tonight. Cleveland winning the top 3 in the lottery. I'm dead serious.
I heard you
If
talking.
Cleveland's in the top 3 in the lottery, I believe LeBron 75% stays. LeBron loses tonight, he goes home, evens it up. It's a 3-game series. I get LeBron, I'll take it. If LeBron and the Cavs are 12th in the lottery tonight, can't do anything with this roster. You lose to Boston, not coming back to Cleveland. That reshapes the league. LeBron losing tonight doesn't reshape anything. They'll go home and win 2 in Cleveland. If they finish number 1, 2, or 3 in the lottery, Jason, they either get the next Jason Tatum or they can trade it for a star. That remains the biggest story tonight.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit just because the draft is so much of a crapshoot now because the kids are 19 when they come in. You can get a great player at number 12. You can get a great player anywhere in the top 15.
Mitchell.
You can if you are as good as Danny Ainge or some of these other guys, you can find a great player in the first 15 picks. So I disagree with you a little bit there. Y'all have made me think of the reverse and how important this game is for Boston.
Look, I'll go this far. If Boston loses tonight, it's over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're going to
Absolutely.
come back to Boston 3-1 down.
Yep.
And it's over.
You know who's not getting a lot of credit? We're giving a lot of credit, and I have to Brad Stevens. But Ty Lue, his ability to make adjustments defensive, we saw it in the Indiana series, how he switched up, how he was guarding the pick and roll on Oladipo. You know how hard it is to have to be able to coach LeBron James, the up days, the down days, when he feels like he's in the mood. He's not getting credit. Watch the adjustments that's going to take place in tonight's game defensively and offensively for Cleveland. And it's not because of LeBron. It's because of what Ty Lue is.
Ty Lue has been overshadowed by Quinn Snyder and Brad Stevens. Ty Lue outcoached Nate McMillan in that series. You go back to that
big
series,
time.
Ty Lue had a great series against the Pacers. I think we're looking so much at all these other coaches because let's be honest, Kerr's famous, D'Antoni's famous.
LeBron coaches the Cavs.
Hold on, but you know what, though? But Phil Jack, if you look at, I did a thing, right? And I don't know where it's at. It's in here somewhere. Ty Lue's first 50 games in playoffs, all right? He's won 30. He's tied with Phil Jackson, 37-13. He's ahead of Pat Riley and ahead of Greg Popovich. All of them had transformational players. All of them walked in and they had somebody there. But, of course, they get overshadowed because they have these superstars that don't get the credit. And Ty Lue right there in 50 games.
Well,
it's right tied
and
with
most,
Phil
if
Jackson.
not all of them, probably had more talent all up and down the roster than Ty Lue.
When Ty Lue got that job, I had a friend who worked for the Clippers, and he said, let me tell you, among coaches, Ty Lue was very respected. I think Ty Lue gets overshadowed by higher profile coaches. I think he's had a really good playoff. Welcome back. Jim Jackson, Chris Broussard are back. Let's return to the Western Conference Finals. Game 1 last night. Houston threw everything they had at Golden State. Got a big game out of James Harden. Got a big game out of Chris Paul. They were at home, got a big lead, and lost by 13 points. Even still, Mike D'Antoni said today, they're not going to change their game plan.
Oh my gosh, ISO, that's all we do. No, it didn't. And that's what we do best. We scored like 60% of the time on it. It's like, no, really? You know, it's, all of a sudden, oh, they don't pass, everybody stand. Really? Well, you watch this for 82 games? That's what we do.
Oh, good luck with that. Are the Western Conference Finals already over?
I'm not ready to go there, but I am losing faith in my prediction of a 7-game series. Particularly, seriously, if they're just going to stand around, and they overdosed on ISO. I mean, that was far more than they did in the regular season. I think they said 45 possessions. And then the possessions that just blow my mind from D'Antoni that wrote a book, Do Everything in 15 Seconds. Yeah. It's like a book about my sex life. But see, now they're getting all their shots. Now they're getting all their shots. At the end of the shot clock, it was blowing my mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between overreacting and seeing the truth. If Tom Brady throws 3 picks, it's over. Overreacting. Amazon stock comes down 8%. Company's over. Overreacting. Seeing a tidal wave headed to you and saying, we're doomed.
That's not overreacting.
That's seeing the truth. I watched Golden State last night, and I'm like, yeah, they're better at everything. Even the shooting thing, they're better at that.
And also, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, they can bait you into ISO ball. Because when they switch everything, you go one-on-one. That's kind of how you beat it. It's can you beat your man? When they're switching everything, you can get baited into it. And I think
Golden State
Golden State baits their opponent into playing ISO ball.
So I think that's so easy with Houston, but here's the difference, too. I'm going to go back to this. It's that offensively, Mike D'Antoni allows his key players to kind of do whatever. And that's a mistake because, again, I always go back to accountability. Even with Golden State, the way Steve Kerr is able to speak and talk to his guys about the importance of moving the basketball. It was a play right at the beginning of the fourth quarter. James Harden was on the bench. But the ball moved quick like this, and they got a nice three-point shot. I'm like, well, why can't they do that 3 out of 5 possessions? Yeah. Then have 2 isolations? Because now you got ball, but if the coach is not going to stress that, James Harden is going to play the way he's going to be allowed to play. And then when you try to correct that, he's going to look at you like, bro, you let me get away with it now, so why you going to change? So they can't change. That's the issue. And for me, selfishly, I'm going to be honest with you. I just want to see a great series. I want to see it go up and down, but there ain't no way. Houston, to me.
It's over.
Houston was not going to beat. Now, they built their team to be competitive with Golden State. To me, they built this team. They weren't going to beat Golden State in 7 games. It just wasn't going to happen.
I could see the next 3 or say 3 of the next 4 games looking exactly like last night. Where it's it wasn't a full-on blowout. Houston's close enough to hang and stay close, like you said. Yeah.
Yep.
But they're just better. They're just downright better, and it's as simple as that.
Do y'all buy the notion that he's not going to change, he's not going to adjust anything?
You can be smart in separate ways. Like, for instance, Belichick. They say literally every game he has a different game plan. Okay, D'Antoni's always reminded me of Chip Kelly, the football coach. Mm-hmm. He creates a system, and it catches everybody off guard in Phoenix, in Oregon. But they don't move from the system. So Belichick doesn't have a system. Every week he's got a different game plan. There's different ways to be a genius. Right. Chip Kelly and D'Antoni have this system. To your point, it's what they are.
D'Antoni's
they don't move off it.
Non-confrontational, right? So he's not going to go to Harden or Chris Paul or somebody and say, we need to do this switch. He's just not.
But I do think, though, with the isolation, keep in mind they tried to go at Steph, okay? Yeah. But that had everybody standing around. I think they'll counter off of that a little bit more to try to get guys. And what I mean by that, if they get a switch on Steph, maybe it's a cross pick down below, because we didn't see as many lobs to Capella.
No.
We didn't see the open jump shot. So I do think Mike is smart enough to understand, once we get this switch, instead of standing, let's get some crosses on the baseline. Let's get some movement. Now the defense has to be occupied. Last night, the defense, I'm just sitting there like this. Okay, here you come, James. That's all it was. So look for a little bit more activity, I think, from the ancillary players.
Okay, D'Antoni's not confrontational. There is a person on that roster who is confrontational. It's Chris Paul. Chris Paul, I mean, he's not just going to go down just doing the same dumb thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
He will. This is a chance to cement his legacy, improve his legacy. He'll call out James Harden, Mike D'Antoni, or whoever. At this point, I just don't think he's just going to take this laying down.
He may need to. He may need to take the lead in that aspect, because Chris is the type of player that can get everybody involved. But again, he's standing. Why not use him to be able to come off of a screen, catch it in motion, and then attack? Those are the adjustments that they have to make.
One thing I did notice, when Harden was on the bench or when the ball was in Chris's hands, they did have more movement. It wasn't just ISO, everybody standing around, so you might see more of that.
All right, welcome back. We're joined now by Super Bowl champ Mark Schlereth and the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's return to the issue of sports gambling and yesterday's Supreme Court decision, which set off a wave of speculation about what legalized betting will mean for professional sports, including an interesting take from Yahoo's Dan Wetzel, who says the financial boon to the NFL will wash away any problems caused by the Colin Kaepernick protest controversy. As Wetzel writes, quote, "The league has money to make, and so much of it that whatever remains of the protests against the league is likely to fade or be completely meaningless. Sorting out this gambling thing is about all these billionaire owners are going to care about." Cowherd, will gambling wash away the Kaepernick controversy?
Yeah, I don't know, Dan. I think he's talented. I think he whiffs here because I think they're two separate issues. The Colin Kaepernick story, that ship has sailed. None of my friends talk about it. You know who talks about it? The media. None of my friends have asked me in a year about Colin Kaepernick. It's over. Now let's go to the gambling story. I think we're massively overreacting. People that don't gamble on football, like my sister, are not going to start. People like me that bet occasionally will still bet occasionally. Degenerates will still be degenerates. Just like marijuana. If you didn't smoke it, you're not smoking it now in Colorado. And if you did, by the way, 10 years ago, it's not like you ever said, "You want to get high? I can't find any pot here in Colorado." I think we're blowing this way out of proportion. I think a handful of betting companies will make money, and the leagues will make a little bit. The leagues make their money on TV revenue.
I thought about this more yesterday. And my initial reaction yesterday, we got the news kind of right before the show. And I do think this gambling thing is going to have an amazing impact on all of sports. And when I say amazing, some of it will be good, some of it will be bad, but the impact will be real. Will it make the Kaepernick controversy go away? No. I say no for a different reason, because I think the people interested in the Kaepernick controversy aren't sports fans. The people promoting that, the people that think that Kaepernick is being wrong, have virtually no understanding of sports, and so they're the clueless group that really are just using sports to make a different point, and they're going to continue to do that. What this gambling thing, though, I think is going to do, and this is maybe a little bit too inside baseball, but they're going to spend money on sports talk shows, these gambling companies, and that's going to be good for us. And I think it's going to inject some honesty into the conversation, because the gambling companies won't be woke. They won't be trying to advance some political issue. They're going to be trying to make money. And so we'll be freer to say exactly what we think. And so the next time that I say Kaepernick did one of the dumbest things in the history of sports and he burned up his career, no one's going to think it's controversial. They'll just say, oh, that guy gets to say what he wants and what he really believes.
Here's what I think, that billionaires don't become billionaires because they don't pay attention to the details, right? They're ruthless business people, and they become billionaires because they pay attention. And this Kaepernick thing still has a huge impact. Regardless if gambling comes in, and regardless if you're making money or you're not making money, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, Article 69, Section 2 of the collective bargaining agreement, if the league is found guilty of collusion, the PA can step in and terminate the collective bargaining agreement. Now, if you think that owners who have the sweetheart deal of sweetheart deals when it comes to players and revenue aren't paying attention to the Kaepernick thing, then you're just foolish. Of course they're paying attention to Kaepernick because it affects their bottom line. If all of a sudden this collective bargaining agreement becomes void and you get to go back to the negotiating table and you've got this potential of new revenue coming in from a players association standpoint, you don't think you're going to basically try to hold, and I know they never are able to do it to the owners, but timing is everything in life. And if you get the right time where all of a sudden players are rolling into camp and collusion is essentially, they're guilty of collusion and you can shut down the season or you can do it in September, you don't think the owners are going to jump and give the Players Association what they want? Of course they're paying attention to this Colin Kaepernick stuff because of the collective bargaining agreement.
Slight disagreement, Mark. I just keep coming back to what Colin said. Like, I know Wetzel well. We've been friends for a while. I just think he whiffed here. Again, even on the big lead, we've seen it. Early in the season when Trump was talking about kneeling and the NFL protests, there were clicks to be had, and we jumped on them. But as the season wore on, week 8, week 12, that stuff was gone. There was no talk of kneeling during the playoffs. I mean, we're forgetting. Kaepernick last played in December 2016. It's been 17 months. I do believe the controversy for Kaepernick is over. I know there's some Eric Reed chatter still out there, but he's not a household name. He didn't go to a Super Bowl. I just feel like the gambling stuff is great. I think
stories generally have arcs. You know, I mean, there was the Kaepernick kneel. Everybody talked about. Boy, it feels like it's there. It really. I keep telling you. I won't get sidetracked. Lamar Jackson Flacco, that's the new Tebow. That's going to be the story of the quarterback who doesn't play much.
I'll say that I do think people still talk about it. I had a big barbecue back in Indianapolis for a bunch of my friends and family just this past weekend. By the end of the night, it's about 10 guys I went to college with. And we talked about Kaepernick. All black dudes, Kappas, Omega Psi Phi fraternity guys. Only one of them was a Kaepernick supporter. The rest of them thought he did something stupid.
All right, to the Patriots, who are 5 weeks into their voluntary workouts, keyword voluntary, Tom Brady, nowhere to be found. First time this decade he hasn't participated in the team's offseason program, playing Qatar with his wife. The Patriots used to pride themselves on having no distractions. Now they can't avoid them. Whitlock, you must love this story. You must have planted this story in the show. Is Brady's absence damaging the Patriots' future?
Absolutely.
I knew that was your answer.
Absolutely. He's damaging the culture of the Patriots way. And I'm not blaming him because it's a domino effect. Bill Belichick, the Malcolm Butler domino fell, and now the Tom Brady domino is falling. There is no Patriot culture without Tom Brady. Bill Belichick can run his mouth and stand up there in front of those guys. If he doesn't have the greatest player of all time co-signing for him, it's all meaningless. And right now, he doesn't have the greatest player of all time co-signing for him. That damages their culture.
When the season starts, they're 4-0, and the Jets are 0-4, and the Dolphins are 1-3. Don't you think the culture will be back steady, rolling down the highway?
What about when they're 4-4 or 4-3 or 4-2? When the loss happens, when Bill does something questionable again, and he doesn't have his friendly co-signer, Tom Brady, there backing him up. That has been at the heart of the Patriot system. The next man up, team over everything, do your job. As much as Belichick gets the credit for it, he can't do it without Brady.
I agree. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter until it matters. When they're 4-0, and things are rolling along smoothly, they'll be fine. And that's the way the league works. But all of a sudden, some controversy happens. Because the one thing you have, if you're right, if the cosigner of all cosigners isn't on board, you know what that makes the rest of the guys in that locker room look at? They look at Tom Brady and go, well, he's not on board? Do I need to be on board? Can I question the authority? And that's how locker rooms work. And so, again, if they're cruising through the season, probably he's not going to make a hill of beans. Probably won't, but lose a couple in a row. And have those losses come back to Belichick and question a decision he made, like the Butler decision. Because it's the first time I have ever seen in the history of the New England Patriots that I've been covering them as an analyst, And I retired, and I've been covering this league for 18 years now. It's the first time that I've ever seen Bill Belichick, as the head coach, his authority be circumvented.
But it's the two best players, Mark. Come on. We're talking about Tom Brady, who's been there for 2 decades falling in line. He wins the first MVP over the age of 40 in the league, right? Mm-hmm. And now he doesn't want to show up for OTAs. I just don't think it's the end of the world. Gronk is kind of falling in line. Remember, during the season, the trainer situation happened. Belichick banned him from the flights and the sideline. There was pushback. Supposedly, there was a lot of arguments. They still rolled all the way to the Super Bowl. Like, I just don't see how it's making that much of an impact. Damaged is so strong, Whitlock. Why can't you just say maybe dented? I don't see anybody on the special teams or the third wide receiver maybe following these guys. Hey, Brady's got 5 Super Bowl rings, okay? He can do that kind of thing.
No, but listen, there's nothing wrong with the word damage. Let's say Brady broke his pinky finger but could still play. He's been damaged. And then he may start compensating because of his pinky and doing other things, and there's just a ripple effect. And I'm just telling you, Tom Brady not being on board, first time ever during voluntary workouts, in his first time ever, it's significant. It's like cancer. There's not a big-ass tumor at the beginning of cancer. There's first a little tumor that no one notices. Oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. And then you go and find, oh, my God, it's the size of a tennis ball now. And that, again, there's a little cancer. And Bill Belichick has the power to remove the cancer by addressing the Butler situation and defending and explaining it, apologizing for it, whatever, to his team. And then I think Brady goes back to normal.
I'm not denying your point. And I've acknowledged that I was wrong. I just didn't think the Malcolm Butler situation was going to be this. The question becomes damage. Is it different? Is it unique? It is a 41-year-old quarterback who I'd rather not be at OTAs or the preseason.
Oh, you think Belichick agrees with you?
No, but I don't
he'd rather
necessarily
him be
think
there.
it's damaged. I do think it's different. It is being circumvented. Tom's making a stand. He's been more deft at social media posts. I just don't know if it's damaged. I still think Belichick...
You can repair a damaged car.
Let me give you a scenario real quick. So last year, the no-fly zone in Denver, the Denver secondary, they end up making a decision to get rid of T.J. Ward, ship him out, right?
The safety.
The safety.
Yeah,
right.
Everybody's a little bit upset. I say on my own radio show in Denver, I think it's a big mistake. I think this is one of those things that, again, doesn't matter until it matters. The Broncos even called me up. They're upset with what I said. And I said, I didn't say anything untrue. This is just how I feel about this situation, okay? So, anyhow, we move on. Guess what? They start off the season 2-0. Then they start off 3-1, and everything is hunky-dory. Then they start to fall apart. And Chris Harris Jr. talks about it. And then Aqib Talib talks about it. And then all of a sudden, Aqib Talib becomes a problem. They have to ship him out, right? And all of a sudden, that whole secondary breaks down. And this vaunted Denver defense, all of a sudden like that, without any help from the offense, understood, but all of a sudden they fall apart, right? And they had to make significant changes this offseason. That's how quickly these things that don't matter tend to start to matter.
Little becomes big.
Malcolm
Right.
Butler, huh? You're really all in on this. I have
the
respect.
Super Bowl.
Listen, you know what's better than 5 Super Bowl wins?
6.
6.
Yes.
You know what? And you're upset that you didn't get number 6, and you feel like your organization let you down when they've asked you to do nothing but sacrifice for the good of the team, do nothing but sacrifice for us and the good of this team, and all of a sudden you said, I'm going to let my ego get away, and I'm not going to do what's best for this team. I'm going to take the guy that was our number 1 corner, played 98% of the reps, maybe he was sick, maybe didn't show up, but our best chance to win, I'm going to say, you know what? That's not how I do business.
Could you argue it's better to just let it go? It's gone. We're 4 months past the Super Bowl. Let's not bring it up because then it's a whole nother round of stories.
Okay, but
TV shows
here's the
and
deal.
radio
You don't have to bring it up. You don't have to bring it up to us, but you damn well better bring it up to your team. This is what you like. You need to sit down in a meeting and say, hey, boys, guess what? Papa Bear screwed up, and I apologize.
And that's how you move on. That's how you move on.
No question the Cavs are having their toughest season since LeBron returned 4 years ago. They are. Today, Brian Windhorst writes that the team is suffering from, quote, organizational fatigue caused by LeBron's whirlwind presence. Last night, Jeff Van Gundy seemed to notice it too, saying the Cavs eye-roll each other more than a couple in a bad marriage. Whitlock, you blame LeBron for the Cavs' dysfunction?
I'm not sure why Windhorst said organizational fatigue when he really meant LeBron fatigue. Just call it what it is. This is what LeBron James does. He may be the greatest player we've ever seen, but this is what comes along with it as well.
All right.
Organizational fatigue and eye rolling and people tired of the stress and the running off of young players. And now the guy don't like playing with young people. And look at Tatum and Brown, these young people kicking his tail.
Is this another one of these segments where you tell me how much you love LeBron except for this?
I do love LeBron, except for the organizational fatigue.
Yeah, by the way, folks, it's exhausting to be relevant and in the finals every year. I don't know if I can take it anymore. It's what happens when you're dating a supermodel. She's got leverage too. She's got a little leverage. You want to get married, she's like, I got my options. She's got it. Gisele Bündchen has a career too. Tom Brady doesn't have all the leverage. Yes, it's exhausting being in the final.
That's a great. Is it easier to date a fox or a mediocre looking woman? You got to be on your game when you're dating a beauty queen.
That's right.
Be able to pivot.
Yeah, that's right. Look, this is no question. You know, LeBron is high maintenance. No doubt about it. But this comes with the territory of any successful team.
Kobe?
When it ended, look, after Kobe's run.
Don't lose it, Jay.
Why do we
Hold on. No, I won't even go to Kobe. Michael Jordan and the Bulls dynasty. It ended badly because Phil Jackson and Jordan couldn't get along with Jerry Krause. Jordan was willing to play another year, but Krause ran him out.
Would do? You know what LeBron? 6 titles and then we fall apart?
No,
great.
It was 3-3. Jordan had to leave. Kobe, Shaq. It ended
still
ugly.
6 titles.
When
They got
Dwayne
one
Wade
in
left
Cleveland.
Miami, it was ugly till he came back. Chris Bosh is mad at him because they wouldn't click. Like, successful runs end badly. After Larry Bird was gone, drought.
By the way, success in anything, it's intense, it's hard. I mean, it's hard having LeBron in the clubhouse.
It seemed like this was a seed planted. This set the momentum for free agency. This story. That's exactly what it feels like. Look, is LeBron the problem? Okay, I'm the problem. Okay, I'm no longer here. That's what that feels like to me.
So LeBron's side plants it?
I don't know who planted it, but it's somebody fingerprints from somebody's campus all over that. Because that's his mans and them. That's Brian, Brian Windhorst. That's his guy.
Not quite his guy.
All
And I
right.
don't think LeBron and these guys planted this. But listen, why are we kidding ourselves? Michael Jordan produced 6 titles with one organization. Magic Johnson produced 5 titles with one
did what?
organization. Kobe did it, one organization, 5 titles. Larry Bird got 3 titles, right, in Boston. LeBron's got 1 title in Cleveland and more headaches in Cleveland than titles.
Is it worth that title?
By the
First title in 52 years in any sport.
Yeah, by the way,
Definitely
there's a reason why
best
those other
sports
guys
stories.
stayed there. Because Boston and the Lakers, they're not historically dysfunctional. LeBron had to leave. If you take LeBron out of the Cavs last 20 years, outside of Donald Sterling and the Clippers, it's the worst organization in the NBA.
He compares himself to Michael Jordan. What are the Bulls without Michael Jordan?
Oh, they weren't great, but they were mediocre. They weren't a mess. They weren't embarrassing.
What was more fatiguing, the 19 games they won the year before he got there, or the 25? I mean, really, that's more fatiguing.
That's not the conversation.
Hurt my eyes
The
watching.
conversation is where LeBron shows up, eventually he wears you out. Everybody around him. He's high maintenance. More high maintenance than the only one I'd put on his level is Kobe, because Kobe ran off Shaq and that was foolish. But I would put him on that same level as Kobe. And this is part of the legacy too. And I don't think Jordan was this kind of a headache. I don't think Magic was. I don't think Bird was. This is a blemish on LeBron that he consistent wherever he goes in Miami. Oh, we're gonna win 6 titles, 7 titles.
Yeah.
And
They delivered 2 in 4 years.
That's pretty good.
Cleveland got his first championship in more than half a
pretty good.
century. I mean, come on.
okay. So now we're down to pretty good. So that's what we're pretty good.
That's the standard?
That's the standard for LeBron James. He's going after Michael Jordan. He's going after Bill Russell. He's going after Kareem. And the standard, well, that's pretty good.
How much of this, too, though, let's be honest, I think some of this is the age we live in. If Michael
Thank
Jordan
you.
was gambling in Atlantic
Yeah.
City the night before playoff games, you don't think in the age of social media, Twitter, 24-hour news cycle.
Did Scottie Pippen leave because he was tired of Michael?
That's
I'm not talking about the
what-
gambling.
Shaq
I'm not talking about
left
social
Kobe.
media.
Shaq and Kobe had
There you
problems.
go.
I mean,
Headaches.
it happens.
Headaches. Kobe's a headache.
Magic Johnson got coaches fired. Or a
Now
coach
you're talking
fired.
about Kobe. Did James Worthy leave him? Did Kareem leave
Yeah, but
him?
it was a different
it wasn't
time then.
as much
It was a
mobility
different
back then.
time then. Players weren't as mobile. That was really a stigma. Listen, divorce in the 50s was a stigma. People
ain't
get
free
divorced now,
agent-
it's not a stigma.
This ain't free agency. This is Kyrie went up to the front office and said, hey, get me the hell out of here, or I may sit out and milk
Yeah,
this injury.
and he thinks
it wasn't about free agency.
He thinks the world's flat. He can be kooky madookie. Maybe that's Kyrie.
He's sitting on the bench on a team that's kicking LeBron's butt right now. He may be proven right. Kyrie could end up with more titles than LeBron. Then what would you say?
Wherever LeBron goes, he accounts for 50 wins and a conference appearance.
And 50 headaches. That's my. And
I'll
again,
take it,
It's
though.
worth it.
Right?
I can't
Y'all got-
relate to high maintenance because I am so low maintenance. So I just can't
Y'all got
relate.
stock in Tylenol. That's
You
all.
gonna tell me you weren't a headache when you were dominating at
Eccentric.
Ball State?
Yeah. All right, welcome back. Chris Broussard, joined now by Super Bowl champ Mark Schlereth. Let's move to the National Football League, where Jerry Richardson has sold the Carolina Panthers to hedge fund billionaire Dave Tepper for a record $2.275 billion. Tepper's reportedly paying cash for the team in what's the most expensive sports franchise purchase ever. But the next two on that list are actually NBA teams, Houston Rockets, LA Clippers, fetching nearly the same price as the Panthers and far more than a couple of other NFL teams. Whitlock, is this proof the NBA is catching up to the National Football League?
Yeah, listen, I'm not gonna, and I'm a football guy, but I'm not gonna sit here and be dishonest. I do think this is significant that the Carolina Panthers, are basically selling for the same price as the Clippers and the Rockets. That's kind of shocking to me. I'll add this caveat. I don't think they sold the team for as much money as they possibly could. And I think that's because they wanted David Tepper fully in their fraternity. He was a minority owner with the Rooney family and the Steelers, and I think that's the path to get into the full fraternity group of NFL ownership. And so they cut him a deal that makes sense for him and maybe didn't get as much money as they could have.
I think it's this simple. The NBA is a global brand. They're Starbucks. The NFL is a massive domestic brand. They're Walmart. So on a selling the franchise basis, global can elevate a franchise. Now, remember, in America, you watch a TV show, there's hamburger ads. But globally, rice is more consumed. So the question is, where are NFL games broadcast? In America. Fox, CBS, ABC, NFL, ESPN. NFL in this country is a much bigger deal. But if you're talking about selling something and the global outreach, that's where the NBA makes up a lot of ground.
That's a good point. I think, look, I've said it before, 20, 25 years, I think the NBA could be even with the NFL or above it. You know, when you look at the concussion problems with the NFL, younger people aren't playing it as much. And to your point, the global brand of the NBA versus NFL, we didn't see the NBA even passing baseball. We didn't see the NFL passing football years ago. I think the NBA could eventually become America's top sport.
I will say this. I think we're, to some degree, comparing apples to oranges because you're talking about Houston, the fourth biggest market in the United States. You're talking about L.A., the biggest or second biggest market in the United States, and you're talking about the Carolina Panthers. What are they, the 28th market in the National Football League or the 25th market in the National Football League? So we're talking about a much smaller market. So if it was the Houston Texans, are we talking about the Texans? Are we talking about the L.A. Rams? If we were to sell those two, what would those franchises be worth? So I think there's some issue there. I'm with you. In 25 years from now, because the NFL is dealing with serious issues right now.
Yeah.
And so 25 years from now, where will we be? I'm not 100% sure. They're trying to make it more, to your point, more of a global sport.
They are. The NFL has two big advantages. We gamble on football. And gambling in this past week Went from big to huge. Secondly, the NBA is a star-driven league. LeBron's one of those once-a-generation, once-a-decade players. Is there a next LeBron? You know, we thought Andrew Wiggins would, we thought Karl Anthony Towns would be, we thought Anthony Davis would be. So could I argue, we always talk about the NFL's in a bubble and reality. NBA could be in a little bit of a bubble now. We got a dynasty. We got LeBron. You know, I think the NFL is always going to be bigger in my lifetime than the NBA, but I do think the global outreach is the strength of the NBA over football.
Here's one of the things that's really interesting about this dynamic is we live in a time where never before have we been so narcissistic as a society. Right? Now, you want to go be seen? Go to an NBA game, right?
Yeah.
You get to be that in-game experience. This is one of the issues with the NFL right now. There's not a truly in-game experience. They're having trouble getting fans to the stadiums.
It's better on TV.
Well, it's better on TV, and you're not part of it. In the NBA, man, you can sit courtside if you got the flow. You can sit courtside and you can get all the cameras on you, and it can be an event to go to this. Gambling could be interesting for the NFL when it comes to what it brings to the stadium experience. Are there bets? Are there things going on in the game now through apps, through the teams, where you can actually be engaged and you can only do it at the stadium? That'll be the next kind of, how are we going to get this thing done?
And Chris, I get the narrative that 20, 25 years from now, the NBA may, but I really hope not. And I hope, I've been thinking for the past 6 months to a year, I think one of the problems football has is no one has taken the time to set the narrative straight in full perspective about what football represents, why it's important to America, why it's important to African Americans, and just why football is such a great game. And for the last 6, 7 months, I've been kicking myself. I feel like this is something I'm going to try to take on to try to explain to people why football is the greatest game.
That's your first book.
And why it's important to America. Nothing brings us together across racial, economic lines like football. Nothing provides more opportunity for guys like me that started out in the hood or started out from poor working class environment. Nothing is better than football, and I want to take the time to explain that to people because that's the media narrative, I think, is out of control and out of context about football. And I keep looking around, why doesn't the NFL do this? And then I actually thought, well, I'm the one that loves football. I'm the writer. Why don't I do it?
Look, I'm with you on football. I mean, football was my favorite sport growing up, you know, but why do you think football can bring people together more than basketball? I'm just wondering. I think
because
basketball would do the same thing.
More people play football.
Just
there's
more
22
guys more
out on the
there's more-
field.
okay.
There's 22 guys out on the field. And again, the thing about
You know what? You're not restricted by being 6'8" either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like to
there's
me,
a place
the
for
greatest
everybody.
to me the
Well,
greatest
short guy, tall
You
guy.
better be.
but
you better
but
be
to
a
me the
certain
greatest
type of
athletes
player,
in the
personally.
world, the greatest athletes in the world play in the NBA. Like, I've never seen guys that have that kind of athleticism, that kind of speed, that kind of quickness up and down the court.
And that kind of
they're
length.
they're all 6'9". You're like, you know, I mean, LeBron James is 6'8". Anybody can play in the NFL. I've always said this, and I talked to the PA about this. We need to embrace it. Hey, there's only 1,700 people in the world that are crazy enough to play this game. You may not be one of them.
Well, you were from
You know,
Alaska.
and that's okay.
Much better job,
Right,
Mark.
that's
There's no
okay.
question.
Alaska, went to college in Idaho.
Right.
And was a Super Bowl winner. Like, that story doesn't happen a ton in the NBA.
All right, welcome back. Mark Schlereth is back, and we're joined now by the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to New England, where the Patriot way appears to be in turmoil, and at least one guy, Eagles offensive lineman Lane Johnson, is celebrating. Johnson called the Patriots a fear-based organization after beating them in the Super Bowl back in February, and this week he made it clear he's still worked up about how they approach the game.
Here's what pissed me off. You know, the Patriots, obviously, you know, I respect their coach. I respect Bill. I respect Tom Brady. But just because the way they won the Super Bowls, the Patriot way, is that how everybody else is supposed to do the same thing? No, it's not. I got mad at the arrogance by them. You know, there's obviously some stuff behind closed doors. You know, their owner talked to our owner. Bill talked to our head coach for the game. I'm not going to say it, but, a lot of kind of built up to that. And I just got tired of hearing about it, man.
Colin, do the Patriots have an image problem around the league?
No, Philadelphia's got a won't shut up problem. I mean, time out. 18 years of wonderful dynasty. These guys win a championship, chatter, 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 chatter. Time out. You know what they are? They're Seattle. They come in, and it's like, pow, great line play, control the line of scrimmage. They got this new young quarterback. They got this coach, and everybody's kind of like it. And, they win a championship. They're doing a little politics, doing a lot of talking. Guess what happened to Seattle? Couple injuries later, couple guys move on. They're picked for third in their division. This feels like Seattle. They get hot. They're the new cool toy. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Where are the Seahawks now? Because I know for 18 years, New England didn't say squat.
I would agree with you, except for the fact there seem to be ex-Patriots and current Patriots who agree with Lane Johnson. Hey, what did Danny Amendola go off and have fun now? Go out and enjoy the game, actually. I know it's a nightmare over here. You got Tom Brady not participating in workouts. Colin, all of this reverts back to Malcolm Butler. When he starts talking about arrogance, because, again, I don't believe Belichick was talking smack before the game. Peterson may have lied to his team and said, you know what Belichick said, blah, blah, blah. But the arrogance that he's talking about is like, oh, man, Belichick thought he could sit Malcolm Butler and prove this point. That's how little respect he had. That's how much arrogance and belief he had in his system and his way. And it blew up in their face, and Lane Johnson celebrated, and the rest of the league, because what Lane Johnson is basically saying, all these other teams trying to mimic the Bill Belichick way. I don't want that. Bill Belichick can do it that way, but not every coach needs to embrace their inner Bill Belichick and be that kind of arrogant control freak as Bill Belichick. I think they got a problem.
Any coach who isn't who he is. Like, look at Bill Belichick's tree. Once those guys leave the fold of the New England Patriots and go be head coaches elsewhere, has anybody had success? Has any guy gone out and had success? So the issue that you get into is, as a player, when you're sitting in a locker room and you're listening to a guy deliver and try to command the room, if that guy isn't authentic, if he's not who he is, if you're like, oh, my Lord, here he goes, he's trying to be Belichick, like, automatically you're going to tune out. So the biggest key here from Lane Johnson's point of view is you got to be you, whatever you are. And let's face it, I mean, his coach played for, 18 years in the league. So he understands. Peterson understands that aspect. Here's the thing that Lane Johnson went on to say that we didn't have the sound on. I'd rather have fun winning a Super Bowl, singular, than be miserable winning 5.
Oh, come on.
You know what? I'd rather be miserable winning 5. And let me tell you, all these guys that say, oh, now we can go have fun. Let me tell you what's not fun. Showing up to the facility in December and you're 3 and 10 or whatever. That ain't fun. That's miserable. I would rather be grinding and rather know that every week I'm going to go out here and I'm going to open a can of whoop ass on somebody. That's what I'd be rather.
Philly's gotten annoying fast.
But he's got a point, guys. There's an image issue with the Patriots. They're cheaters, right? Spygate, Deflategate, the Patriot way, as you eloquently pointed out. You know what the Patriot way is? Hey, we don't want to pay you on defense. So Vince Wilfork, see ya. Richard Seymour, we'll trade you. Malcolm Butler, bye. They say goodbye to all these good defenders. But here's the thing. I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. That's how Bill Belichick runs his ship. And as you said, 18 years, bunch of Super Bowls. They're contending every year. So both can be true, right? They have an image issue, but they're also winning. So is there really a problem?
It's never been pro player. So are we surprised in year 18 there's a little pushback from the employees? No, not really. I mean, by the way, Walmart runs a business. A few years ago, they got some pushback. They want to unionize. The employees are like, we're not getting what we should get. Man, when you run a conglomerate, when you run a powerhouse, sometimes the employees push back a little.
I know this. When guys are tired in year 10 and haven't sniffed a playoff run, you know where they'll take less money to go to? The New England Patriots, because they know they're going to have a chance to win a championship.
Get that
and
ring.
I've talked to tons of guys that played for them. Aqib Talib. I talked to Aqib Talib just as he was on his way out of Denver. There's two places he wanted to go. He wanted to go with Wade Phillips in LA or back to go play with Bill Belichick in New England.
Right.
Those are the two places he wanted to be.
Elsewhere in the NFL, everybody's talking about this week's Supreme Court ruling that opened the door for legalized sports gambling. Peter King outlined some of the negatives gambling could bring to the NFL, like issues surrounding players betting. Pro Football Talk says betting could force positive changes like full-time officials and enhanced replay. Whitlock, you think gambling will cause the NFL to make drastic changes?
Well, if you consider full-time refs a drastic change, and that is, I think that's a good drastic change. I've wanted full-time refs. I think Florio got into his piece about using a ref perhaps in the instant replay booth who's a part of the officiating crew and communicating with the officiating crew down on the field. That's something I've been talking about for years. Use all of the technology. These officials need help from a guy that's looking at all the camera angles. Some of that view is far better than being on the field. I think the gambling thing could initiate some positives, influence and change, but Peter King, I think, raises some points. It also is going to raise some concerns in terms of players potentially gambling or more corruption.
You know, I think legalized sports gambling is like marijuana legalization. People who are not pot smokers don't start. People who smoke it all day still smoke it all day. And the casual pot smoker still buys it casually just from a more legitimate place of purchase. Is that my sister's never going to bet football. I'm going to bet it occasionally. And the guy in Hoboken who you think's a degenerate is still going to be a degenerate. I think what happens is there's always this fear-based, oh, the world, speed limit's going to 70, we're all going to die. Car manufacturers make better cars, car deaths go down. What happens is manufacturers, commerce regulates, the bad goes out, it gets more formidable, more legitimate. I think sports gambling, anybody who wanted to do it is doing it. I think if anything, it will tighten up the NFL, tighten up officiating, tighten up replay. I think that's a win.
I think it's a little being overblown, just a tad, guys, about the whole gambling. So first of all, the states themselves have to take the next step. The leagues have to get on board with the states to make sure that the integrity tax is all lined up. I mean, I know it's the offseason, right? The free agency's done in the NFL. The draft is done. It's kind of the downtime. So this is a fun story to talk about. But in reality, drastic changes, all the changes you talked about, they should already be in place, right? Full-time refs, I mean, instant replays getting tweaked every year. So when the question says drastic changes, I don't think we're seeing anything.
Full-time refs doesn't feel drastic.
But full-time refs, it was the refs that didn't want to go to be full-time refs, right? It wasn't the league. The league wanted full-time refs. The refs didn't want it. Can I get the shot over Jason's shoulder? If we can just get rid of that box, the histrionics of going to that sideline when the call is made in New York, that would make me really, that would be drastic enough change for me.
Yes.
Right. I hate instant replay. I've always hated instant replay. I think it's ridiculous. Like, oh, we can review this, but we can't review this. We can review this, but we can't review a penalty.
Do you think gambling will change it?
You know what? I hope it's consistent. Like, I hope that what's a catch in game A is also a catch in game B. That whoever in New York is looking at those things, the inconsistency is what drives me crazy. But I'm a player, so I look at it from the standpoint of I have never lost a game on one play. You know, I may have lost a game because a guy dropped the ball, but there were 17 other plays in that game, and that drives me crazy.
Stop you there.
Yeah,
you're a player. You've never been a gambler. As a gambler,
right,
I've lost money on one play.
Pittsburgh Steelers last
There have been plays that turn on a dime if you're a gambler. And so I think the NFL and all these sports leagues are going to be under more scrutiny and more pressure to make sure the integrity of their games is crystal clear. We don't want any Tim Donahue's. We don't want to hear about any players that are perhaps maybe I'm making $700,000 and I'm not satisfied because I'm trying to keep up with the guys on my team that are making $5 million and they start cutting corners. So
I worry more in sports gambling with Division II basketball. NFL games are televised. The guys are well compensated. Division II basketball, a kid barely is getting through, whatever, William and Mary or some. By the way, those games aren't televised. You know, nothing against William and Mary, Mary or William. But the point is, that's where Hey, 10,000 line. No, there's a reason years and years ago Vegas sportsbooks stopped putting lines on Ivy League football because 9 guys bet it in Hoboken and they beat the books. Yeah, like the small college sports, I think there could be corruption. All right, welcome back. Chris Broussard, Jason McIntyre here. Let's move to the Western Conference Finals. Whole bunch of fun. Resumed tonight in Houston after getting overwhelmed by the Warriors in Game 1. At home, Rockets coach Mike D'Antoni said his team needs to ignore the noise and stick to their game plan. But his own players appear to be contradicting him. Eric Gordon saying team needs to play less ISO ball, an idea James Harden seemed to echo.
We're in this together, and I can't do it by myself. And we need everybody to be at their top top play, And so whether it's CP, whether it's Eric, whether it's Tuck, and we just open up and just talk about the game, talk about things that we see, that they see from their angle. We can get better on things that they saw that actually worked, and figure it out.
All right, Whitlock, you worried about the Rockets' mindset heading into Game 2?
Yeah, a little bit, because I do think there's a bit of confusion about what they're going to do. I hear James Harden's comments, and he may say, hey, we had a discussion and we're talking, and that sounds different than Mike D'Antoni. We are who we are. This is what we do. It's just one game, blah, blah, blah. I think if we get to the third quarter and things aren't going well, Chris Paul is going to start, I think, inflicting his will or in direction on this team. And Chris Paul right now, I think, is saying that, kind of stay the course, stay the course. I think that all goes away if they're down in the third quarter of this game. And I think moving forward, they'll realize that was a nice little regular season offense, but it doesn't work at this time of the year.
Yeah, rigid and stubborn rarely win in any business. And I may be reaching here. You guys just react to this. There's been a couple of moments with CP3 and Harden. There was a moment in the Utah series. This goes back to you can see a divorce before it happens. In that series, Utah was clearly the better team. And there was that little moment. And I'm like, they're intense in this series with a rookie, with Rudy Gobert, with Joe Ingles. It was just a little moment. Okay, and that was a series they controlled. To Jason's point, they're down 11 in the third tonight. That's magnified. Am I nuts on that?
Yeah, look, that happens. I mean, you play sports, you get in arguments with your team.
You never slapped my hand on the show.
Chris Paul is going to Chris Paul at the end of the day.
I'm not going to jump on the Rockets, let's crush the Rockets right now. I actually think both D'Antoni and the players are right, and here's why. D'Antoni said we have to stick to who we are. They didn't do that in Game 1. They ran 45 isolation plays in Game 1. That's the most any team in the NBA has run in 5 years. They averaged 26 a game.
So
now that's still most in the league, but they doubled up. They got ahead. And remember I said on the show yesterday, Golden State can bait you into isolation basketball because they switch everything so you go one-on-one. They just have to stick to their game plan. That's why Eric Gordon was like, I'm not getting the ball. We got to run less ISO, because in the regular season, even though it was a lot of ISO, it wasn't as much as Game 1. So I think they just need to play the way they played in the regular season and not get too ISO heavy as they did in Game 1.
I would use fragile. I think that's their mindset right now. When after one loss, that's all it took. One really bad fourth quarter where you ran into Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson, and everybody's on the wrong page. As you guys are saying, maybe the third quarter tonight, if it's dicey, I'm thinking first quarter. Honestly, if it gets ugly early, Chris Paul's history. Kenyon Martin was on this show last week and said some stories, not on the show, but off stage, about him and Chris Paul and how Chris Paul treats his teammates. And it's one of those situations where you saw that. I hadn't seen that video with James Harden and Chris Paul. Chris, I know you're chalking that up as nothing. That's a Salt Lake City, Utah Jazz versus the Rockets,
okay? It's a playoff game.
This is the Warriors, maybe the greatest team of all time. You're talking about potentially unraveling at home in Game 2. I'm worried about the Rockets tonight, guys.
All right, to the Cavaliers, who weren't just losers on the court last night, but also at the NBA's draft lottery, where the first-round pick they got from the Celtics in the Kyrie Irving trade, which they hoped would fall in the top 3, fell all the way to number 8. The pick was the last piece of business from the Kyrie trade, and once you account for some midseason trades, Cleveland ended up flipping their second best player for Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., Rodney Hood, and the number 8 pick in this upcoming draft. Cowherd, was this trade officially a disaster for Cleveland?
Well, what it illustrated is what I think we all know. You can go back 50 years in the NBA. 4 C's don't equal an A. They just don't. I mean, the Kareem trade in Milwaukee to the Lakers was about as bountiful for the team losing a star as any ever. Shaq to Miami, the Lakers got good players. Our friend Caron Butler, I think, was part of that. Man, when you give up a star, Jason, this is a star-driven league. In the NFL, it's different. You give me a left guard, a right corner, a Mike.
Yeah, this ain't Herschel Walker.
In the NBA, Kyrie is worth, there's just very few Kyries.
I'm not ready to call it a disaster because I still want to see what happens with the 8th pick. I want to see who they get. Who knows? These young kids, anywhere in the top 15 of the draft, to me, can become a superstar. So I'm not ready to give all the way up on it.
Yeah, I'm with Jason on this. I mean, look, they lost the trade, but disaster, I'm not ready to go there. Kyrie Irving demanded a trade, threatened to have surgery and not play, and then is hurt anyway. Like, they could have kept Kyrie, and he might be hurt right now. And as you said, everybody's poo-pooing the 8th pick. Steph Curry was a 7th pick. Klay Thompson was a 12th pick. Donovan Mitchell was a 13th pick, so it happens today. So I just think that, you never know who they get. It's a deep draft, too. So it's still a lot to be
I'll
seen.
side with Cowherd and say this was a disaster. When you look at Jordan Clarkson not even getting off the bench in Game 2, I mean, that was a guy who looked good in the regular season. Whitlock, I'm going to ask you this one. When you look at how this trade is shaken out, if you're LeBron James, here it is, end of the season's over. You look at Kobe Altman. Well, let's see. That first trade for Kyrie didn't really work. Mid-season stuff. Do I have any faith in Kobe Altman to stick around here and help me rebuild the Cleveland Cavaliers?
And if I'm Kobe Altman, I'd look back and say, do I have any faith in LeBron James? If I provide him with young players, will he get along with them to the point they can stay here and be on the team?
Come on, if they were
Kyrie Irving was 24 years old, 25 years old, and LeBron ran him out.
You don't think Kyrie had a little diva quality? He was a diva before LeBron got there.
If Tamron Hall's a diva, I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. And he should have dealt with Kyrie Irving.
On Kyrie's side, too.
What?
LeBron, you could say if he's Halle Berry, I'm dealing with it. I mean, you getting the champ. They could, look, the bottom line, they could have kept Kyrie. Were they going to beat Golden State with Kyrie?
No.
Probably not. So LeBron still might have been out of there.
Yeah.
So I don't even think the LeBron thing has to factor into it because he probably was on his way out anyway.
By the way, Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, and Larry Nance Jr. scored 2 more points than Kyrie Irving last night. That's trouble. That is trouble.
That might be on the relegator more than the elevators. The relegator.
Well, Jordan didn't even play.
I understand. Relegated to a bench player.
Come on.
The
One of
relegator.
these days, we're going to do a segment with the LeBron lover.
I was
where
gonna
he
say,
says
I
something
thought you
nice
liked
about it.
LeBron.
Maybe
I
tomorrow
know.
we'll try that.
Welcome back. Time for last call to Boston, where J.R. Smith earned a flagrant 1 last night for shoving Al Horford in the back while he was in midair. After the game, Marcus Smart said J.R. is known for his dirty plays, but reportedly the NBA won't discipline him. Cowherd, should he have been suspended?
I'd say no. I think it's close. I don't like that. When Al wasn't fully in the air when he pushed him, Al was just starting to jump. I don't love that play. I've defended J.R. Smith and his kookiness before. I could have gone either way. I would have if I ran the league. I'd say no, but I don't like it at all.
My sources in Boston told me before the show that Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens pleaded with Adam Silver not to suspend J.R. Smith to make sure that he's available on Saturday. So this is exactly what the Celtics wanted. They want J.R. Smith out on the court. This is actually bad news for Cleveland, and LeBron, I think, has filed an objection to the ruling. All right, to Dallas, where Cole Beasley's rap album, the autobiography, dropped this week and is climbing up the iTunes charts, currently sitting at number 61 overall and number 13 for album releases in May. Cowherd, are you shocked that Cole Beasley is the next Eminem.
I think he's more G-Eazy.
G-Eazy?
Yeah.
Look, people don't think I'm joking. There is a little white rapper called Little Dicky that I think is the greatest thing going. He's hilarious. His raps are good. I listened to some Cole Beasley before today's show.
What do you think?
I thought he was okay. And far better than me. I'm not dissing Cole Beasley, but I just thought he was okay.
How about Cole Easy?
Cole, that is a better name, Cole Easy. That's what he should call himself. That's a good idea.
You are shocked I gave a reference, aren't you?
Yeah. Who'd you say? G-Eazy?
G-Eazy.
G-Eazy.
Why don't you listen to some of that tonight?